have an announcement to make to y'all, to the people of America.
The mothership has landed. It's the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Doctor, I think I'll return to my station now.
You are at your station, Mr. Spock.
Dr. McCoy, I believe you're enjoying all this.
Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up.
Well, opinions?
I think we're in a lot of trouble.
That's a great help, Mr. Chekhov, Bones.
Well, I think Mr. Chekhov's right. We are in a lot of trouble.
Spock, and if you say we're in a lot of trouble.
We are?
Now you'll find yourself back among us illogical humans again.
Which I find eminently satisfactory, Doctor. For nowhere am I so desperately needed as among a shipload of illogical humans.
Touché, Bones.
I find your arguments strewn with gaping defects in logic.
These are the voyages of the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. We're ready to move out.
Before we start, I'd like to say something. There's no reason why you shouldn't have complete confidence in your chances to come out of this thing alive and in one piece.
From coast to coast, from border to border, from one end to the other and all points in between, the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast is on.
Yes! That's awesome!
We crank up and break down the great guitar-driven rock of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And you are invited to come along.
We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
And now, your hosts, Jeremy Lunnan and J.R. Stanton.
We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately.
It's time for the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
All right, we're here.
We are here.
Well, welcome to Live and Dangerous, the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. And JR, did you realize it's been over a month?
You know, I hadn't thought much about it because time flies when you're having fun. But yes, I did think, it's been a little bit of time since I spoke to my good buddy Jeremy.
Well, one of the commitments I made about 2 months ago was we were going to do this weekly. And you see how that's worked out.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
It's not working out too well, actually. So, but I'm excited to be here. And the topic tonight, this is always kind of fun to do. By the way, if you're joining us, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on the Twitter, which is now called X. Did you know that, JR?
I actually like the logo, although it seems that the change in name was somewhat controversial. So,
I know. And I don't, yeah. So whatever. Twitter is now called X, but we're live on X. I heard it.
A little bit of ZZ Top there.
Yeah, they might show up in our list. They might show up in mine. I'm not saying anything.
A little bit of a teaser there.
What we're going to do tonight, we need to do. This is something that you do. This is kind of like I put it up there with like doing your taxes. It's something you regularly need to do to keep things in line. Every 6 months, every year, you got to go through your top 10 albums list. And it changes, right? It might change in a week. We might have a completely different list. So I've done this with all of my past hosts. And
so how many lists would that be?
Well, there's JR, you're the last co-host. You're not going anywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
You're not going anywhere. So just let me allay your fears. But we've done it twice. 2 other times we've done our definitive top 10 list, which begs the question, how definitive are they if we change them every 6 months? I don't know.
Well, I think you need to have at least 4 or 5 definitive top 10 lists. I know that my taste has become more eclectic with aging.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to get to that. I do have, by the way, gas station fountain drinks are the official beverage of the CGR. And the gas station I went to was out of large lids. I see you've got yours.
Yes, well, it's official.
So I had to take the lid from their little
Slurpee. Yeah, Frosty, Slurpee. Hey, at least when you tip it over on the keyboard, you have some degree of protection.
It gives you like a second or two more time to rescue. Good point. So before we get to our list, we do have a few emails we want to get to. And one of these, actually both of these, JR, are directed at you, which made me feel good on the one hand, but bad on the other hand, because I've been here for 2.5 years. You come one time and there's 2 emails to you.
Well, I think I probably may have sent those myself. Or did you? Oh, maybe you blocked those.
These are legit. Yeah. Oh, yours automatically goes to the trash. But other people. No. So here they are. 2 short emails. The first one says, "Subject: Kiss." The message: "I was the one that got JR and Steve on Kiss. LOL. If you have a space on your podcast, I know my name doesn't start with the J, but I know the 70s and 80s music. Signed, Max Adair."
Oh, my man. Max.
So here's the problem. If we had Max on the podcast, would he behave himself?
Well, we did call him Mad Max.
For a reason. Yeah, exactly. So,
actually, I bear some trauma and scars from some fun times with Max.
Yes.
Right here, there's a scar there and kind of right there.
I think Max was a friend of yours, but to me, Max just, beat me up and stuff. I mean, I don't know that I would call him, I'm joking. Max was a friend.
Certainly.
Max was a tough guy. And he was the type of guy that when you weren't paying attention, he might just headbutt you.
Well, it was all in fun. Except in fact, that's the scar I'm talking about. Of course, this was in competition, so it wasn't actually in fun or tomfoolery.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, I do have some Max Adair scars, but I have to tell you, he has a few from me too.
Well, in your advanced years, JR, I don't know if we could have Max on headbutting. I'm far enough away. He's in the same town you're in, so you guys could technically be in the same room, and I'm not sure that would be a good idea.
That's correct. I mean, again, we might hearken back to those days when these top, or what I may tease a little bit, but these top 10 were actually playing. So some of them anyway. So,
all right. So that was great to hear from Max. Max, thanks for listening. And
thank you, Max.
Shout out to Max Adair for sure. So hope all is well with Max. Okay, here's one more. Dear CGR, this is from Stu Allen in Montrose, Colorado.
Okay.
I just read the word Montrose, and it made me think of another album that should be on my list. And
I know which one you're going after, too.
We're going to have some honorable mentions. We have to have honorable mentions. So Stu Allen, Montrose, Colorado, says, Dear CGR, enjoyed your last episode about Kiss. A warm welcome to JR.
Hey, thank you.
It goes on. I believe you live in catfish country. Have you ever been noodling?
Noodling. Well, it is an Oklahoma sport, well recognized. It's, dangerous at times, depending on where you're at. It does require some incentive, liquid courage. But actually, myself, I've not been noodling. I certainly have enjoyed my fair share of mudcat, channel cat, but we did it with what's something called a jug line.
Yeah.
And a little bit more proficient. We would call that the civilized version here in Oklahoma. But again, we might hearken back to the conversation, the email just before.
Yeah.
I'm sure Max has noodled.
I'm sure Max has noodled. So for those not in the know, sometimes it's called hand fishing. Mm-hmm. Noodling is when you catch these big, gnarly catfish with your hands. And it usually requires you go underwater, you hold your breath, you find a hole in underwater, and there's those catfish just hang out there, and you stick your hand in their mouth and pull them up. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and you pray that it's a catfish. Because if it's a big turtle.
A snapping turtle.
Yeah,
turtle is also known for its. Okay, so I have to say this. 10 years ago, actually probably 20 years ago, I'm watching a documentary about noodling.
Yes.
And so I'm seeing all these guys noodling, and then they do, they're like following 5 different noodlers, right?
Professional noodling, right?
Yeah. The one guy they're talking to, he's like, well, yeah, I work all day for the city. And then when I get off work, I like to head out. And then they zoom out, and guess who he works for? City of Lawton.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. It shows the Lawton logo. He's like driving a City of Lawton truck. This is Lawton, Oklahoma, southwestern Oklahoma. Shout out to everyone in Lawton.
Definitely.
Lawton High School.
Exactly. In rock and roll.
So this guy who was the subject of this noodling documentary was from Lawton, Oklahoma, JR's hometown, where we both graduated from high school. It made me feel proud.
Well, yeah, we hit the map for some good reasons. It's a feel good thing. And I will tell you that I did work at the City of Lawton myself.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I drove one of those trucks and enjoyed it.
I remember
it wasn't noodling as much, but at that time, but I did get off in some deep water at times.
I remember because you would like go and clean out the lakes and the ponds, and I remember that. In fact, a couple times. I can't remember. I was in a parking lot or something, and you'd drive up to me in the city truck. Full of lawnmowers or whatever, and harass me.
That was me.
It was a good memory. So JR would be all over the town doing whatever city people do in those trucks, mowing lawns, cleaning out the lakes and the pond. It was
picking up trash. That was 4th of July was always a big one. I made all my money. They had us working there late, picking up trash. But hey, you could get overtime, and when you're was young, overtime meant more money.
That's good.
That's good. More opportunities to buy albums.
So let me finish this email. So he asked, I believe you live in catfish country. Have you ever been noodling? So we talked about noodling. Then he says, LOL, just kidding. So I guess he didn't really want to know about noodling, but we just told him.
It's a benefit. It's an added.
He says, we're givers. We're givers here. Okay. He says, I am firmly in the camp that believes Kiss is one of the great bands simply because they were fun. People rail on them because they're not the greatest musicians or whatever, but I recently saw their End of the Road tour and had a blast. And isn't that what rock and roll is all about? Keep on rocking.
Exactly. Well, and we touched on that, didn't we? Sometimes what makes them great isn't just one particular thing.
Absolutely. Well, great. Okay, so one other just housekeeping thing that I want to say really quick. And that is, we had a number of folks that were sponsoring us on Patreon. And I want to thank the folks that have been doing that. We made the decision to change platforms as far as our support goes. And so we shut down our Patreon. Again, thank you to all of those that were on Patreon. You won't get billed, you won't see that coming out of your account anymore. We had $3 a month and $6 a month, folks. So we aren't using Patreon anymore. What we're using now is on Twitter. There's 2 ways to do it, and it's only $1 a month, whichever way you do it. On Twitter, it's $1 a month. You can't buy anything for $1 anymore. So $1 a month for the quality content, it's unbelievable. It's a no-brainer. So $1 a month on Twitter, or if you're on Spotify, if you listen to us on Spotify and have Spotify, you can sponsor for $1 a month on Spotify as well. Whichever way works for you. If you're able to afford $1 a month, then it helps us keep the podcast going. We're not getting rich doing this, JR. I don't know if you knew this, JR. You don't get paid. So
now, I may have to look at the terms of my contract. I do believe that
if you notice, there's no mention of money anywhere in that contract. So we're hoping to do.
We can get some sponsorship, right? I can get some endorsement deals, maybe.
Totally. We're looking at some endorsement. In fact, I'll just throw this out. If you would like JR to endorse any types of products, maybe like incontinence products.
Yes.
Anything.
I'm fully prepared to endorse whatever product, and I will. I am emphatic that I will use.
He'll use it. He'll use the product.
I will use.
I think that goes for both of us. Yes. Yeah. So if you would like us to endorse a product, we can do that. And seriously, if you are interested in being a sponsor, you can reach out directly to us. Braun and Jarvis Family Dentistry right here in Spokane, Washington was a longtime sponsor of us. You can absolutely sponsor. You'd be surprised at how inexpensive it is. And the cool thing about sponsoring on a podcast, and I'm being completely serious here, an ad that you ran, that you put in an episode today, it will run forever.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years from now, when someone comes and listens to a back episode, an ad that you come directly to us to run, it's embedded in that episode. So it will play forever. So,
good to know. That's the gift that keeps on giving, the ad that keeps on, paying.
It never goes away. So if you're interested in that, email us classicguitarrock@mail.com and we can give you all the information on that. I feel like this is kind of like the Jerry Lewis telethon.
It might be, but we're missing a few things. Like, variety, entertainment,
variety and talent, that sort of thing. Other than that, it's just
exactly, only different.
Okay, all right. When we come back, we're going to talk about our definitive top 10 list. So stand by, and we'll be right back.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Pazzi. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPB.
Hey, this is Jeremy Lunnan, host of the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. If you're a business owner trying to market your products or services to a growing audience, let me invite you to consider advertising here on our podcast. The Classic Guitar Rock podcast is currently rated in the top 2.5% globally, according to listennotes.com. And our prime demographic is males aged 35 to 59. Here's one of the great things about advertising with us. An ad you run with us today will still be getting played 5 or 10 years from now. Because our episodes never expire, neither will the ads you run with us. Think about that. As our audience continues to grow, you are locked in with an ad you place now at a very low rate. It really is a phenomenal investment. If you think our demo is a great fit for your offering, it really is a no-brainer. We can do anything from a simple host-read ad to a fully produced commercial. Either way, you will be shocked at how economical it is to advertise on the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. If you're interested, please email me, Jeremy, at classicguitarrock@mail.com. But hurry, because availability is limited.
How do we cram so much classic rock into one podcast? Ancient Chinese secret.
Welcome back to the Classic Guitar Rock podcast, live and dangerous. Jeremy and JR, and tonight is our definitive top 10 list. We're going to jump right in. Let's just talk about it for a minute, because I didn't give JR all I said was, JR, come up with your 10 favorite albums. That's all I said. That was the only
exactly that was the prompt. And I think maybe this time I actually got it right. I know I kind of missed. I went a little to the left on Kiss, but I recovered. So you got to be careful with the prompt. This one was pretty.
You knew what was going on here.
Yeah.
Okay, and these are, and I didn't clarify this, JR. I'm kind of assuming you thought this way, maybe not.
It's hard to think that you could think that I think a certain way.
I think that's true. Yes. So it's not necessarily the top 10 albums that we think are necessarily the greatest albums, but these are our top 10 favorite albums.
Exactly. Okay. That's good to know. Now you're letting me in on that.
Yeah. There are albums on my list that are probably not going to show up in any magazine ranking of the top, but to me, they're in my personal top 10. And so I'm assuming probably for you. So before we even get to our top 10, we both have some honorable mentions, and these are albums that we just couldn't fit 10 in, and these just didn't quite make the top 10. However, next week they might, because that's kind of the nature of our definitive lists that really aren't that definitive, obviously. So,
yeah.
How many honorable mentions do you have?
Maybe 2.
Okay.
My problem had to do with bands. I had to go and then recycle. Okay, I love this band. Now, which album do I love the most?
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it was kind of reverse.
You didn't want 2 albums from the same band in your top 10. It sounds like
exactly.
That's the way I was.
That's the way I'll tell you how I did this. I looked at some of my old. I keep, you might know this, but I have every CD or cassette that I've ever owned, and I also have my LPs. The LPs are actually just a remnant of what I actually had, because the trip across country, you don't want to kill all your albums. I actually was able to preserve some of that, but the bulk of my albums are back in California at some record store called Rasputin's. But either way, they gave me top dollar. It's odd, but we'll have to do a story on that. It's odd what they pay for, what they pay the most for.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's cool. No, I had looked at this as what had the most wear on the case, what album stayed the longest in the CD or cassette player in the car, kind of like the soundtrack to your life sort of thing. And I can look back and see that some of those times I had to repurchase the album at least multiple occasions due to damage, overuse, overplay. And so there's some stories behind each one of these albums that I selected that might have same. I think it might actually ring the same bell with other listeners or viewers. You probably had the same or similar experience, and that's the beauty of this. So I hope that as I go through my list, that it rings or resonates with you, maybe brings you back to where you were in that stupid Pioneer CD player that ate one of my best albums, but or those Pioneer 6x9s that got blown out.
Exactly.
While I was listening to one particular album at max volume. But no, looking forward to the top 10. Again, where I found my trouble was actually trying to define albums versus artist.
Okay, I kind of struggle with that. Once I had I came up with my list of 10, then it was just putting them in the right order. So what honorable mentions do you have? You can just share your honorable mentions.
Here's the thing. I always liked Barracuda, Heart. There was some really, straight on you. The era at that time frame, and that the way they came in on the guitar licks early on that and how they drove that beat. I liked Heart, but then as I looked through it, I couldn't find one particular album where I went, oh, well, this is, I remember listening to this from start to finish. So Heart, a lot of great singles, but I couldn't find the album that I was looking for.
Awesome.
And you're going to be surprised about this one. I know this is going to hurt.
It might.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt. Ozzy Osbourne.
On your honorable mention?
Hey, I'm going to tell you, I know it's going to hurt, but I have to preface this. Yeah, okay, I hope so. I knew it was going to hurt. I can't say that there was one particular album, and that's maybe to the benefit that's going to salvage this conversation. There was several it was competing at such a high level that I could think, well, I played the heck out of this one, but then it's kind of weak in the middle, and then I like this one. So I will say that Ozzy, and you'll see why as we go through. Ozzy, for me, now remember, we're talking about JR. He not the top 10. He's really in there, though. He was in, then he was out. Then he was in.
Okay. I can get past this, Jay.
I hope so, because I know that our friendship hinges on this. And I'm glad I got you to commit to my permanence before I mentioned this.
It's okay. So are those your only honorable mentions?
Yeah, that's it. I could toy with some other ones, but I think that in the interest of brevity.
I'll give mine. And again, in a week or two, some of these could be on my I actually have 3 of honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is the debut album from Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. It was a single, right? But I just, over the years, really love that album. That's an album I like to put on at night, and I sleep. Not because it's boring, but it's kind of on the mellow side. It's beautiful. I just like that. I really like that album. And since about the time I was about a sophomore in high school, I've played the heck out of that album.
Well, I remember you mentioning that too, Jeremy, and I think that you may have been a little bit more of a mature listener at that time frame. There were songs I really loved on that, and but then it grew on me. And
yeah,
so like you said,
I much prefer that than like the whole Money for Nothing. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that first from 1978, that first Dire Straits album, I really like. The other
doesn't surprise me, you know.
Yeah. So the other one I have, and this is one that is not going to be on anyone's list, but for pure me playing the heck out of it, I bought it from the Columbia House Record Club for 99 cents. It didn't count towards my membership, but it was 99 cents, so I bought it. It's Fire Down Under by a band called Riot.
Ooh.
And I have a whole episode about Riot somewhere, the greatest band you've never heard, or the greatest album you've never heard. It's about. So that's a honorable. But here's one that really I almost went in and changed things because I had forgotten about this album. Def Leppard's High and Dry could very easily be in my top 10, and maybe it's in JR's. Maybe that'll show up. We'll see. I don't know.
Ooh.
So Def Leppard High and Dry is an honorable.
So I throw one across your bow, and you send one right back at me.
Yes. Okay. So here's what we'll do. JR, you share your number 10, then I'll share my number 10, and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time in each one. So what's your number 10? And because this way we get to see if we have any.
So we're going backwards.
Yes. Yeah. We're going backwards.
Okay. I was queued up to number 1 and counting back. I see this. We're counting down. Another one of those radio things.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with a novice, you kind of have to spell this out.
Okay. What's your number 10 album on? This is J.R. Stanton's definitive rock album list.
And I think Max Adair would be behind me on this one. It's for me. I got a lot of play on it. It's Whitesnake's self-titled album, number 10, and again the time frame was perfect. Certainly the music, the CD never left the car stereo player. It stayed in for weeks at a time, and it could start or stop at any song, and I was happy.
It's a great album all the way through. There's again, shameless self-promotion. A few episodes back, we talk about this album in Whitesnake. It's a great album. It was a huge album.
Yeah, huge. And for me, it's one I can still listen to, and that's kind of where I am with these albums, brother. They're ones that are still, they're still in the CD player,
but they don't sound. There's a quality about them that is not dated.
Yeah.
And that's a very valid point, and it's going to come up again. So my number 10 album is the Cars debut album. That's one JR listened to a lot too.
I like that, and I will tell you that I was struck because not being the aficionado across genre. I put Cars on and then took them off. Thought, well, they're not heavy enough, or we're looking for rock or a lot of feature on the guitar. But talk about one talented band.
As long as your Milli Vanilli album doesn't show up on this,
how dare you? How dare you?
If you keep your Milli Vanilli off, I'll keep my Village People off.
Okay,
can we agree on that?
We can agree on that. A gentleman's agreement.
All right. So now you're number 9, JR. Number 9.
Okay, well, again, I'm with a self-titled album, but I would argue the same thing, even though it spans to a different part of the time frame. Audio Slave.
Slave.
Yes, at any point in time, listening from Cochise to any of the elements of that album, wherever it lands, I Am the Highway. Show Me How to Live, Gasoline. All of these. Doesn't make any difference what song pops on from that album, because it did. It was staying. In fact, here's a story. I've actually opened cases and the CDs are missing, and I'm going, oh crap! Did I leave that in the player? That happened a lot to me, and it was because they were my favorite. And that's what's interesting is you lose some of your favorites because you put them in and you just never take them out. But that album start to finish. I don't care where I got into the car. I could sing that album and rock along with it. And so it survived for me. It survived.
And what year did that come out?
I'm going to say 2002.
Because I gotta be honest. I mean, I'm aware of Tom Morello. I've heard Cochise, right?
Yes.
But my exposure, my familiarity with Audio Slave is very limited.
But Tom Morello, he appears in a lot of different. I'm still listening to him.
Yeah.
He still has good stuff. I try to with him, I have to dissect him because he has some things that I'm really not interested in. But you can tell he has talent in regards.
He has
to
talent and noise, right? He just makes noises that are cool, and he finds a way to make them work.
Exactly. In fact, I think that was some of the pieces he's responsible for is the way he introed in several of those songs. And that's, I guess, again, you could call that Audio Slave. Maybe it is more Morello, but and I have a certain affinity for Chris Cornell.
I'm gonna go. Chris Cornell was awesome, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and listen to some Audio Slave just because I don't know enough about them. So that was your number 9, right?
9.
My number 9 is, and this will be maybe controversial until maybe it'll make more sense at the end. This is my only Black Sabbath album, and the album I'm picking is Heaven and Hell with Ronnie Dio. That's my number 9 album.
Well, I actually, with Ronnie James Dio, yes. I think they may have enjoyed, I don't know, from a commercial standpoint, more success, but with other singers. But Ronnie James Dio certainly is talented, and I listened to a lot of that time frame when he was there.
And you think about the Never Say Die album, the last one with Ozzy, which compared to Heaven and Hell, it's terrible. There's a few good songs on it, but Ronnie brought a whole new lease on life to the band. Now, I would not, Master of Reality, that maybe is a bigger album from the Sabbath catalog. But for me, just like you mentioned, the Audio Slave album, the Whitesnake album, I can put on that Heaven and Hell album anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a good song. And it's just a great album. It's a great album.
And I think that's how you go with these. I mean, if I got to if you get into the minutia of what was successful, or is this an all-time great list for everyone? I think you lose track. Certainly, as you said, we could recategorize these on to different levels, but I think Black Sabbath, it has to show up on the list. Although it didn't show up on mine.
All right. So number 8. JR, what's your number 8?
Okay, another one that's going to probably hit below your expectation, but hits high on mine. The Cult, Sonic Temple. And I know that you know a little bit about that because we've talked about it in the past. Again, came out in 89. And I think about what was I doing in 89? Well, this actually was my brother's. We talk about my brother Steve a lot, but I managed to steal this CD for well over 6 months, and he didn't know
before
it.
He noticed.
Yeah, before he noticed. And so there were some things about this that drove me similar to Audio Slave. Honestly, I think you could probably interchange some of the appeal with the Cult and Audio Slave for different reasons, mind you, but I think that they hit the same note with me, and that is that I didn't obviously left the album in the player way too long, ruined several of them. But the thing is, it had several similar melody beats that it didn't make any difference what component you heard. Something about hearing it was positive. Now, again, I said it. Some of these are audio. The audio is the soundtrack to my life. So I'm not sure how much of this was just the fact that I thought it was great. And I'm talking about great at the time that it was out. Mm-hmm. Some of them may not have the same degree of staying power, but I think that the Sonic Temple does. Even I wish they would release it with modern production.
Yeah. Well, and you just talked about something that's really important. Any of these top 10 lists we make is, where is the break, or does there need to be a break between it's great because the music is great, or because it's nostalgia, it's sentimental to us. So we think about what was going on in our life, and so because it brings back good memories, we think it's a great album.
Yeah.
And it might not be that good of an album, but to us, we're like, it doesn't matter, right? And I don't know where that line is, and if it matters. Great.
Well, for the purposes of conversation this evening, it certainly fits the bill for, hey, this is definitively what JR likes.
Exactly. Totally. So my number 8 is a band that JR likes.
Ooh.
Cheap Trick's In Color is my number 8.
I thought you were going to go there. I was going to say, if you stole from my list.
So In Color is the one. In Color, again, the only crappy track on the whole album is the album version of I Want You to Want Me, which just sucks on that album.
Well, don't hold back, Jeremy.
Terrible. Every other song on that album is just awesome, and I love it. And, of course, the live version of I Want You to Want Me put them on the map.
Oh, but well.
Cheap Trick In Color is just, everyone should listen to that album. It's just a great power pop album. It's great.
Exactly. And it's hilarious. Well, we knew there would be some of this that's going to crosswalk over your list to my list because we spent some time together.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so what's your number 7, JR?
Number 7, Cheap Trick.
No way, but I bet I know which one it is.
Well, you go ahead and give it your best guess.
At Budokan.
Oh, you know me too well.
I got it.
Yes, it's
all
at
right.
Budokan. And although, the live atmosphere of that may have been, it's not studio, that piece may be a little bit of a distractor, I think it still ranks up there as tops. And
to be honest, what is At Budokan? It's mostly they're playing In Color.
Yeah.
And some stuff from the first album. But
so in 79, came out in 79. I can tell you what I was doing.
Stuff from Heaven Tonight too. So they're playing stuff from their first 3 albums. That is,
this is cool. And I actually I saw Cheap Trick. I don't think I had a girl on my neck on that.
No, that concert. I was at that show too, but we weren't really friends yet. That was with Molly Hatchet opening for him.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so you were there.
Great Plains Coliseum.
That's exactly the Sweatbox.
The Sweatbox.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, good. I knew Cheap Trick would wind up on yours. Okay, so that was 7, right?
Yes, that was 7.
My number 7, again, this is not going to show up on any recognized top 10 list, but I've got to go with Michael Schenker Group's Assault Attack.
Okay.
The one and only album that features Graham Bonnet, who had just left Rainbow, did the one album, was fired on the tour because he had a wardrobe malfunction that we won't get into. But I love that album. I mean, Michael Schenker is probably my favorite guitar player, and he's a weird dude, but man, he can play, and I love Graham Bonnet. I just love it. It's a great song. Came out in 82, and it's just a phenomenal album. So we're down to number 6.
Yeah. And I'll have to tell you that I battled in and out on this one. 1977, Queen. Oh, I can tell you what I was doing when We Are the Champions came out. I can tell you it was my, and I wrestled. This was my walkout.
Yeah.
My walkout. But what's funny is the transitions for that actually tie you into the whole album. So,
is this News of the World?
What album? News of the World, 1977.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And, Queen, I remember that it was the distinct nature of that. I can tell you again where I was, what I was doing. And this was one of those albums that I kept repurchasing. And so it had purchase power. I would argue that there's probably still selling albums, this album.
Sure.
And simply because the fact that We Are the Champions, We Will Rock You. These all of those songs are they stood the test of time.
They're still used in commercials. You still hear them all the time. I was in Walmart just a few days ago, and you know how Walmart, at least up here, they sell LPs, but not a whole lot. It's pretty limited selection.
You have to pick through the newer stuff to get to something.
News of the World. They had News of the World and A Day at the Races.
There you go.
Vinyl that you could.
Well,
buy.
see, I needed Queen on this top 10.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, that's
I
great.
needed, and I tried to figure out which Queen album had the biggest impact on me.
Yeah. And that's hard to do because I was like you like this band. Which album of theirs do I pick? I got to pick it out. Okay. That was number 6, right?
Yep, that's 6.
My number, I'm rushing us through this because speaking of Walmart, I have to pick up a grocery order.
Well, hey, real life intervenes all the time in this radio world. But, you tell me if you get that second beep, I'll cover for you.
My number 6, you had a live album. It's funny. How many live albums are on your list? I only have one live album.
One.
You have the live Cheap Trick. Mm-hmm. My number 6, also a live album. Speaking of Michael Schenker, it's UFO, Strangers in the Night.
Okay.
And double album. Talk about great guitar playing. And, again, Michael Schenker, a very mercurial figure, right? He left the band because Phil Mogg punched him. So there was inter-band squabbles. And he always told him, if you ever hit me, I'm leaving the band. He left literally in the middle of this tour.
Oh, really? Did he leave while he was on stage? Or what?
I don't know when it happened, but he didn't even finish this tour. But this album is unbelievable. Strangers in the Night. It's a great live. It's my favorite live album ever. And it's got great singing, got great playing. It's a great album. And
that's one of my brother's bands. He loves UFO. And I will tell you right now, Jeremy, if you ever lay a hand on me,
okay,
I'm done. I'll walk off in the middle of, I don't care where we are. I'm walking off.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Okay. We're down to your number 5.
Yeah. Well, and again, a question mark. Can greatest hits go on? I hope so, because Eagles greatest hits 71 75
volume 1. You can't beat that album.
Yeah. And again, I still find this album on the CD player, MP3 now, whatever, the streaming in my latest vehicle. That's one. I swear I've bought this in every format at least 12 times.
I agree. And I've got it. Yeah, I got it on CD. I've got 2 vinyl versions. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, I have 3 copies of The Grand Illusion by Styx because I see it somewhere and I forget.
Then it better show up on your top 10.
It's not on my top 10 list. Should be.
Now see, that's the thing. Tommy Shaw.
It could have easily been, now that I say that, but it didn't show up. Maybe the next definitive list, it'll be on there. So
okay. So next week, will we do the next definitive list?
When we do the next definitive list in a week, it might be.
We need to be timely.
So,
and besides,
okay,
my taste change.
I'm on number 5, right? You just did 5.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, my 5, Van Halen 1, the first Van Halen album.
Ooh, yeah, I loved.
Yeah.
And you're stealing from my list again, but that's okay.
That's all I'm going to say. It's Van Halen 1. It's Eddie. It's Eruption. That changed. That was a game changer, right? Mm-hmm. There were three eras of electric guitarists. There was Chuck Berry. There was Jimi Hendrix. There was Eddie Van Halen.
Eddie.
In my mind, those are the 3 pivotal. You had pre-Chuck Berry, then you had Chuck Berry. That changed everything. Then you had Hendrix in the 60s. That changed everything. Then you had Van Halen in the 70s. It changed everything. One of the 3 pivotal guitar players in my mind. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would agree. I'd throw Jeff Beck in there somewhere too, though.
Jeff Beck's problem was he couldn't get along with anyone either. Right? So he'd quit in the middle of a tour. And they're brilliant. He might be my favorite. Schenker's probably my favorite. Jeff Beck's probably my second. He does a lot of work, though. The recognizable body of work.
Yeah,
because he didn't want to stay in a band. He wanted to do his own thing.
But he had ability, and I think he did some things that were unique to Jeff Beck's style. And a lot of people, a lot of guitar players have said that they emulated some of the aspects of what he did. And but actually,
because he wasn't mainstream,
I agree.
A lot of the mainstream guys were doing stuff they got from Jeff Beck, and so Jeff Beck never got the. And I'll give you a case in point: Gary Moore. I loved Gary Moore, and Gary Moore will tell you he just stole stuff from Jeff Beck.
Well, as well. Imitation is flattery, right?
Exactly. But no, that's
it's also maybe copyright infringement. But hey,
that's right. Awesome. Okay, so we're down to number 4. We're flying, dude.
Okay, well, we're doing good. I think we don't want to bore the listener or the viewer. We want to give them the meat and potatoes and move on. There's no side dish here. If you're looking for dessert, maybe later.
Maybe later. Okay,
so I really felt like this particular album could have hit anywhere on my list. I mean, this was almost number 1. I have to tell you, I didn't. And and it depends on how you go with the rhyme or reason. But AC/DC Back in Black blew up several speaker sets in my house, in my car, and they sound better louder is what I always thought. And again, and I guess I felt that way in the 80s. Now I can't hear as much, so we've learned to turn it down just a bit. But no, that has to be, in my mind, has to be on everybody's list. And it better at least have thought about.
It's not on my list. And
like I said, thought about.
I know. Well, it huge album. One I played a lot. As I was making my list, I didn't.
Well, it's easy to overlook AC/DC because, they admit that their driving guitar and the uniqueness is incorporated into every song.
But my favorite quote is when Angus says, I get sick of people telling us we've made the same album 12 times. We've made the same album 13 times.
I heard that. But here's the thing: out of all those albums, Back in Black, probably, I would say it's one of their best-selling albums. I would also say
it's the same thing. You can put the needle down anywhere. Every single song, it's all killer, no filler. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great one. That was
my number 4.
My number 4 is Judas Priest's British Steel.
Man. Oh,
yeah.
Now I'm having some regret. Yeah, Judas Priest, Rob Halford, and
that's the first album, JR. You remember? You knew me when I was a fledgling guitar player, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's the first album I actually said, I'm going to learn to play this album.
Yeah, but Jeremy, you were born good. I remember your ability was like straight out. Like, it's been uncomfortable for your mother, but anyway, you came out with a Les Paul.
This was the album. The very first song I sat down to learn from a record was Grinder by Judas Priest from this album. Mm-hmm. And then I went on and learned Metal Gods, and I learned most of the album. Just a huge album. And I talked about how some albums have held up better than others. This album, for whatever reason, the production, it's a really good album, and it holds up a lot better than most of the Priest albums that came after, in my opinion.
Well, I do have a little remorse because I you don't think about something until somebody else says it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Judas Priest, talk about staying power. There's a couple of their albums that definitely withstand the same test of, hey, they were left in for weeks at a time. So not a bad 4. That's not a bad. Yeah.
So what's your number 3?
Oh, this is going off the charts, my man. Oh yeah. I just went rogue. This one is Book of Dreams
by Steve Miller Band. I love that album.
Yeah, but see, that's where the argument for me was in my head. Tons of conflicts, that I'm constantly in some kind of degree of turmoil psychologically.
I don't have a problem with that pick. I love that album.
Well, I love that album. Where to put it, though? Here's the thing. Yeah. It had the greatest influence over me. I will say that. It was 1977 when I was coming into, I'm music is my life. This is what's important. And again, the test for me on definitive albums was, could I sing every song, could I sing along with every song? I mean, if we went with what I could sing, we might lose track here, but, cause there's tons of admiration. Yeah, not so much on the talent, but I don't have the same kind of talent these guys do. And that's why I can appreciate someone like Steve Miller.
I love
Steve
that
Miller
album.
band.
And
Great album.
He was different. Think about the hard rock albums at the time. What I liked about Steve Miller was his guitar tones were really clean, right? There's not these super overdriven rock tones that you were used to listening to Van Halen or someone, but it was a clean sound, and I love that album. That's a great
kind of a West Coast sound at that time too. I mean, there was another. I remember this album and Jerry Rafferty and a couple of others from that time frame.
I love that era. Yeah,
there was something about the way they played that was had a fabric.
I can't. That's a great choice. I didn't even think of that. I love that.
For three, not bad for three.
So my three. This has been as high as number 1 on my list. It's always in the top 5. I just think from a production standpoint, from just some of the coolest songs ever written ever in the history of the world. And it wins the prize for the greatest gatefold of any album. This is a band JR likes. ZZ Top's Tres Hombres.
Yes.
The gatefold is that picture from the Mexican restaurant with all the tamales and enchiladas and tacos, and there's food spilling over the side of the plate, and it's like, it's appropriate because it's a musical feast. How's that? I love this. I love this album. Every single cut, the coolest song in the world, Master of Sparks. It tells a funny story. If you never heard that song, go listen to Master of Sparks.
They always have a good story, don't they?
I love that. And I mean, Billy's probably 22 years old at the time, and he still sounds like a 75-year-old man on it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's the probably the best part of ZZ Top is that sound is able to stick along. We thought he was old just because of his beard. I remember
he
thinking,
sounds old. He probably talked like that when he was 12. It's awesome. So that's my number 3.
Dang, you kill me because that Eliminator was mine. Dang, I didn't put ZZ Top on here. And,
that's all right.
No, I'm kicking myself, man. I'm kicking myself.
We're gonna have to redo it. We're gonna have to have
give me another. Yeah, give me another week. Dang it! I knew ZZ Top. I don't know how I overlooked.
What's your number 2? What's your number 2?
Is the one you hinted at. Okay, and I will tell you that I struggled. Did I want the same band to show up twice? And this was my number 1, and then number 2, and then number 1, and then just about 5 minutes ago or whatever before we started, I thought maybe I better go back to number 2. This is Hysteria, Def Leppard, and it's different.
I don't know if you see my shirt.
My shirt.
It's an actual Hysteria shirt, even though Hysteria is not my favorite Def Leppard album. Look at that.
Okay, but so here's the thing. Something unique happened in 1987. And I commemorated this uniqueness about 3 days ago. On Tuesday.
I know what you're talking. I know of what you speak.
Yes, I got married.
You got married. I was not there. Remember, I was not there.
Yes, yeah, you were there in spirit, buddy.
I was not there.
You were still tight back then.
You sent me pictures.
Yep,
I saw pictures, and so just the backstory. I was a missionary for my church at the time. So I was gone for 2 years. Kind of living vicariously through JR because as a missionary, we didn't listen to rock music. We didn't all of this thing. But here's what I don't know if you remember.
I remember what you're going to say.
Boy. So here's what JR did. He sent me a cassette. He dubbed Ozzy Osbourne's tribute album when it came out in 87, and he sent it to me.
That's right.
And I would sneak away and listen to that.
Well, here's the thing. I hate to say that I was oblivious to Randy Rhoads, but Randy Rhoads wasn't on my radar until I met you, Jeremy. And we met young, so maybe Randy would have came on at some point, but I didn't. I knew of him, but I didn't know the actual significance. And so whenever you started teaching me different, different chords and playing some guitars together. I remember I went and got a Randy Rhoads poster and hung it up on my back of my door. And I thought, I'm going to do more Randy Rhoads stuff. Turns out that was a far reach, me playing Randy Rhoads. I remember one time I asked you, why can't you teach me this? And you said, that's Ingwe. Yeah. No one plays him.
Yeah,
you're not going to learn that. You've been doing this a year. No, I've got to learn this song. Yeah. But I knew what it meant to you. And I knew that being isolated, but for a good cause, I will say that I totally supported where you were at and where you are, because I think that as much as we enjoy music, there's certainly a better mission in life than rock. It's hard to believe.
I still have that cassette version with JR's handwriting on it of Ozzy Osbourne's tribute that I got summer of '87. He mailed it to me, and I'm like, and I listened. So
that was
That's a great memory. So your number 2, sorry, we were talking about Hysteria. Your number 3 or 2 was Hysteria.
Number 2, Hysteria.
It was Hysteria. Okay. Another great album. And that was another one, right? During that same 87, when I'm a missionary, I would be out and I'd hear it, and I'd go, oh, that's the new Def Leppard. That sounds really good. Same with Whitesnake. I'd hear that Whitesnake playing. There was a lot of good stuff in 87 that I had to catch up on.
When you got back.
In Excess, Kick. So all of that I had to get caught up on because I was gone for 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
doing something really important.
Well, thank you. It was a great experience, but I did miss my metal and my rock while I was away. So I made up for it when I got home. Okay, so my number 2, speaking of Randy Rhoads, is Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz.
Okay, yeah.
That's my number 2. And I mean, it's the classic.
I knew it would be.
Yeah, I mean and sometimes it's number 1. Today it's number 2, but it's history, right? It's Randy Rhoads. Those two albums, Blizzard and Diary, and then of course Tribute. That's all we got from Randy with Ozzy, right? So enjoy it, play it because that's all we got. But man, it was magical.
But no, I knew that would be high on your list, and that was the album I was toying with most with Ozzy because it had such a big,
it's
impact.
Huge album, super important. Okay,
but I knew you'd put it on, so I left it off.
You left it. Okay, good. That's fair. So, what's your number 1 album, J.R. Stanton?
Okay, this is going to be highly controversial. Okay. Among purists, but 5150 Van Halen, and let me explain. Okay. I loved David Lee Roth. Okay, I did. I certainly appreciate, but I categorize them a little different. 5150. Remember what I said? An album I could put in and land on any song, and it's going to be something I sing along with, and something that actually speaks to me, and I think is high quality music. And Sammy Hagar brought something to Van Halen, which we called Van Hagar. That wasn't wasn't. It was fresh. It wasn't out there. We weren't trying to be somebody else. In fact, they weren't trying to repeat what had been done in Van Halen prior to that. It's like they diverged. And that came out with a sound that I thought resonated with me. And 5150 has always been in the top 2 for me. So there was no doubt that it would either be 2 or 1. And today it's 1 in 1986.
So here's the thing, JR. First of all, we've never talked about this, by the way. We've never had this conversation about Sam versus Dave, right?
No.
But I think JR agrees. I treat them as 2 different bands. Yeah. There's the Dave era. There's the Sam era. They're all great.
But they both have Eddie.
Absolutely. And I am like JR. I think Van Halen was a better band with Sam. I do. And I don't know if you remember this. You and I were in the car together. You were driving when we heard them play Why Can't This Be Love for the very first time.
I remember that. Now, you know what?
I didn't. And the album wasn't out. It had just hit radio, and you and I were in the car together, and we heard that first little. And at first, for the first few seconds, at least me, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. But then once the singing came in, I was all in.
And Hagar still does it. Sammy Hagar. I don't care where he is or what he's doing. You get the idea. There's a party right there with him.
Yep.
The Cabo Wabo or didn't they have a bar attached to the stage?
I think they did. They did at one point. And of course, the Cabo's still. I mean, it's a business.
Well, the Red Rocker. When you join him together,
years old, and he's not. Yes, he is. At least 75.
Really? Well, I track him on Instagram and on Twitter. And I keep up with Sammy because he's actually very vocal. He'll share stuff, and he's very open, and he's kind of family oriented. He's soft.
No, I'm a huge Sam fan, and I think that's a great album. My number one, and I've talked about this on several episodes, but my number one album today is 2112 by Rush, 1976. Love that album. Great album. And
I fully agree with that. But again, I'm going to concede to say that I knew it'd be on your list.
Well, and I knew you'd have some Sam era Van Halen on there. I knew that. That would be there. But you know what? We didn't pick any of the same albums. We picked some of the same bands, but I thought you'd have some ZZ Top on your list.
And honestly, I will tell you, brain fart. ZZ Top has to be in the top 10. And the beauty of this is, like you said, next week we get to try again.
Mm-hmm. But I knew you'd have some Van Halen with Sam. I knew you'd have some Cheap Trick.
I'm kicking myself over the ZZ now. Thanks for bringing that up.
No problem. So really quick. Okay. Read down your top 10 from 10 to 1.
Okay. So I have Whitesnake, their self-titled album. Audio Slave, also self-titled. Sonic Temple with The Cult. I have Cheap Trick at Budokan. I have the News of the World Queen. And I have Greatest Hits with the Eagles. I also have AC/DC Back in Black coming into number 3, Book of Dreams with Steve Miller Band. Number 2, Hysteria, Def Leppard. And number 1, of course, what we just said, 5150, Van Halen.
I can't argue with your list. My list is number 10, The Cars debut album. Number 9, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Mm-hmm. Number 8, Cheap Trick, In Color. Number 7, Michael Schenker Group, Assault Attack. Number 6, UFO, Strangers in the Night. Number 5, Van Halen 1. Number 4, Judas Priest, British Steel. Number 3, ZZ Top's Tres Hombres. Number 2, Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz. And number 1 was 2112 by Rush.
In a beautiful top 10, I might say.
You know what? Between our 20 lists, our 20 albums, that's pretty good.
I think it's satisfying. I think if you're a listener and you're hearing this, we had to have hit some of your top 10.
Yeah, totally. Totally. In fact, we want to hear from you. Email us, classicguitarrock@mail.com. Share your top 10. I'd love
and share us and tell us what we got wrong.
Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what we got right. I would love to hear your top 10. So email us, classicguitarrock@mail.com.
And I'd like to hear from Max Adair again.
Max.
A lot of these albums
JR obviously won't go visit you in person. Yeah. So send an email. So yeah. Great. Yeah, it's great to hear from Max. So, JR, thank you so much. This was fun. And,
certainly was.
We'll get together. I'm not going to promise next week. I'm going to say
let's go ahead and shoot for next week. That way, we have some. We can
next week. We'll see what kind of life hops up in between. So,
thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, JR. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time right here in the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. Bye, JR.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Oh, sweetly.
Please like, subscribe, and share. You can email us at classicguitarrock@mail.com.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
We'll see you for the next episode of the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast.
Keep your head on the ground and keep reaching for your feet. Wait, that's not right. Keep your feet on the ground and keep keep your start. What the heck? Just thanks for listening.